Good morning in America. So I'm from America, so I'm just waking up. Yeah, thank you. So you wake up in the morning and you begin your daily routine, right? Like you make your bed, you drink your coffee, you put on your teeth, dress your pants, and maybe you even yell at your roommates for setting their alarm at 5 a.m. and snoozing it for 2 hours. Hakjun. But suddenly, your day takes a dark turn. You go on Facebook and you notice that one of your friends posts, "I am finally dying today." Now, where I'm from, students post things like this all the time. It's supposed to be a harmless exaggeration of dark humor discussing the difficulties of school. Unfortunately, that was not the case for 29-year-old Aurelia. 2 hours after she made this post, she was voluntarily administered a lethal injection and died in her bed. Now, what separates Aurelia's story from most other suicides is that her actions were completely supported and approved by her doctors and friends. In fact, she was in the accompaniment of both friends and family during the time of her death. You might be thinking that this is a horrible tragedy, but for Aurelia, it was freedom. To provide some context, Aurelia Brouwers was a 29-year-old Dutch woman who suffered from several mental illnesses, such as PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety disorders, and borderline personality disorder, which is just to name a few. She was a frequent blogger who wrote about the difficulties of living with these quote-unquote demons. She said that these demons consumed her thoughts and caused her to commit crimes such as arson and self-harm. After being in jail for 2.5 years, she sought help from mental health institutions for 3 years, but unfortunately was met with unsuccessful results. Her blogs have inspired many fans around the world to support her in her ultimate decision of death, and have even praised her on social media for being brave. Aurelia's story is just one of many cases throughout the world known today as assisted suicide, or aid in dying. Assisted suicide is typically defined as the practice of giving someone the means to end their own life. And the term euthanasia is a concept that adds on to this by having doctors be directly involved in the termination of a patient's life. This has been a hotly debated topic amongst governments and healthcare professionals all around the world. The debate usually boils down to whether or not it's ethical to allow people to die if they are in unbearable and hopeless pain. Countries such as Canada, Belgium, and even some parts of the United States have already supported euthanasia cases, and many have praised euthanasia for being a dignified solution for allowing patients to have control over their death without causing emotional and financial suffering to their family members. For example, if an elderly person were to soon be in a vegetative state, they may want to request euthanasia out of fear that their family members would have to financially suffer to keep them on life support. Or some people simply don't want to be in a vegetative state because they believe that's equivalent to death, and they don't want to be remembered as a bedridden person. However, people who are in opposition to euthanasia and assisted suicide say that it is an immoral practice of medicine, as well as a belittlement of human life. Another argument brought up is whether or not people with mental illness have the mental capacity to make such a decision. For example, in the Netherlands, there was an elderly woman with dementia who agreed to euthanasia, but mid-procedure, she struggled to stay alive, and she was forcibly held down by her family members to receive the lethal injection. Cases like Aurelia's could spark suicide support movements rather than suicide prevention. I know that might sound like a far out of reach idea, but I'm simply following the logic of euthanasia through to its natural conclusion, which is that people who want to die should die. I may not understand pain to the extent of people who have considered euthanasia, but I can understand the desire to kill oneself. Suicide acts like tunnel vision, blocking any and all other options from sight. A successful salesman once said that people don't buy things based on logic. They buy things based on emotion and justify those emotions through logic. I believe this principle can be applied to many aspects beyond consumerism. When I was in film school, I received a call from my mom. And I usually don't receive a call from my mom when I'm in film school because she knew that I was studying a lot and I was staying up late, go 48 hours with no sleep. So she's like, yeah, leave my son alone, let him do his thing. But this time I knew it was serious. So basically my mom called me to let me know that my cousins and my aunt were no longer a part of our family. And my cousins, they were like my hyung and my nuna. Like I saw that they were my closest family members. So to hear that they were no longer our family was, I didn't believe it. Prior to this incident, I had suicidal thoughts because I believed that I wasn't worthy of being in my family. I didn't bring them enough happiness because my life has just been one long string of failure after failure. But my friends, they would console me and say, no, like that's not true. But when this incident happened, it basically confirmed my deepest fears, that my closest family members saw me as this person who brought them pain. And I had no idea that I had brought so much pain upon my family. And I had no idea that about our whole family situation. So for about the past 20-something years, apparently my cousins have been harboring bitterness and resentment against me and my parents. And I sat there listening to my mom on the phone in the middle of the school quad. It was late at night. No one was around, so I could be a little emotional without, getting embarrassed. And, I sat there with all these emotions just festering inside of me, like anger and sadness, disbelief. But it wasn't until I heard my mom cry over the phone did it hit me that I am so selfish. This whole time in film school, I've just been thinking about how hard my life is, or like how much pain that I'm enduring. But I complain about all these things, and yet right in front of me, there's an opportunity to help my mom, to take responsibility, to be the son that I wanted to be. So I took this responsibility. I said, I told myself, I'm not going to fail again. So I prayed with my mom. We talked all night, and by the grace of God and because of this opportunity, we were able to come together as a family and overcome this ordeal. I'm not saying that every person who considers suicide or euthanasia is selfish. I understand that many people consider euthanasia or suicide for selfless reasons. And I understand that I do not have the authority to speak on the pain of other people. I've never known what it's like to have PTSD or a terminal illness. I never knew what it was like to have a family member in the hospital who was suffering severe pain. But I do know that pain is not something that should be avoided. It is a tool for refinement. I believe it was Spider-Man's uncle that once said, with great power comes great responsibility. We've all been given a beautiful gift called life, and with this gift, we've been given a power to change the very fabric of society. When you focus on the pain, you will live a life of pain. But when you focus on the responsibility that you have been given, you will experience true freedom. Death is not freedom. It is the elimination of potential. This is why I believe that euthanasia and assisted suicide cases should be made illegal in most circumstances. I say most, once again, because I do not have the answers to everyone's situation. There might be some very complex situation out there that I do not have the expertise to talk about. But all I know is that life is precious and it needs to be protected above all else. So to further emphasize this point, I've brought a supplemental video that I'd like to share of a man listening to music.
We first see Henry inert, maybe depressed, unresponsive, and almost unalive.
Henry.
Yeah?
Henry.
Yes, sir.
I found your music. You want your music now?
What do you want me?
Let's try your music, okay? And then you tell me if it's too loud or not.
Then he is given an iPod containing, we know, his favorite music. And immediately he lights up. His face assumes expression, his eyes open wide. He starts to sing and to rock and to move his arms, and he's being animated by the music.
And he used to always sit on the unit with his head like this. He didn't really talk to much people. And then when I introduced the music to him, this is his reaction ever since.
So this video went viral a few years back, and currently has over 17 million views on YouTube. Many patients who are considered for euthanasia have dementia, just like this man. However, even though he has dementia, he was able to touch the lives of millions of people. He may not be completely autonomous, but he's improving the lives of many by simply being himself. And that is the essence of humanity. Thank you.